I used to think I was the luckiest woman alive. I had a husband who brought me coffee every morning without being asked. I had a career I loved. And I had Diane, my best friend since we were 22, fresh out of college, terrified of the world and clinging to each other like life rafts in a storm. 20 years. I want you to really sit with that number. 20 years of birthday dinners and ugly crying over movies and telling each other things we'd never tell our husbands. 20 years of showing up at each other's doors uninvited because we knew we were always welcome. Diane was maid of honor at my wedding. She held my hand when I had a miscarriage. She called me every single day for a month after my mother died. So when the truth finally came out, when I found out what had been happening right under my nose for 6 of those 20 years, the betrayal wasn't just about my husband. It was about losing the person I thought was my safest place in the world. My husband's name is Marcus. We met when I was 28, got married at 30, and spent the first decade of our marriage building something I was genuinely proud of. We weren't perfect. We argued about money and about his mother and about whose turn it was to book the car service. But we were solid. At least I thought we were. Diane had been single for most of our adult lives. Not for lack of options. She was beautiful, funny, the kind of woman who lit up a room without trying. But she had high standards, she always said. She was waiting for someone worth waiting for. Marcus adored her. He always said she was like a sister to him. He'd tease her about her dating disasters, bring her takeout when she had a bad day, remember her coffee order without being told. I used to find it sweet. I used to brag about it. I have the best husband, I'd tell people. He even loves my best friend like family. I didn't know how right I was. It started, as these things apparently do, with something completely ordinary. I was looking for a phone charger. Marcus had left his jacket on the kitchen chair and I reached into the pocket without thinking. What I found wasn't a charger. It was a receipt. Dinner for 2 at a restaurant I'd never heard of. The date was a Tuesday in March, a night Marcus had told me he was working late with a client. I might have let it go. People grab dinner with clients all the time, but there was something about it. The restaurant name. I'd seen it somewhere before. I went to my texts, scrolled back through my conversation with Diane from that same week, and there it was, a message she'd sent me on Wednesday morning. Had the most amazing pasta last night. Found this little hidden gem downtown. Will take you some time. She never mentioned who she went with. I didn't confront either of them. Not right away. I'd spent enough years watching crime documentaries to know that the worst thing you can do is tip someone off before you have real proof. Instead, I started paying attention, the way Marcus checked his phone when he thought I wasn't looking. The way Diane sometimes went quiet, mid-conversation, like her mind had drifted somewhere she wasn't going to invite me. The small cancellations, the slightly too casual explanations. I started going through our joint calendar, the one Marcus and I shared so we could coordinate schedules. I noticed a pattern. Every few weeks, Marcus had a work thing that I'd never paid close attention to before, and every few weeks, Diane had something she was dealing with. Never the same day, always within 24 hours of each other. I needed to be sure. So I did something that still makes my hands shake when I think about it. I hired a private investigator. I want to tell you that it felt empowering, that I was strong and decisive and completely in control. I wasn't. I was barely sleeping. I'd lost 6 pounds in 2 weeks because food tasted like nothing. I was walking around my own life like a ghost, smiling at my husband over dinner, texting Diane like everything was normal, while inside I was screaming. The investigator's name was Carl. He was quiet and efficient and completely devoid of sentiment, which was exactly what I needed. He gave me a folder 3 weeks later and said, "I'm sorry, before I even opened it. I didn't cry in his office. I don't know how. The photos were time-stamped. 6 different occasions over the past 2 months. Marcus and Diane, coffee, a walk in the park, parked outside her apartment at 11 at night. At the back of the folder were phone records. Carl had obtained them through legal channels. There were hundreds of messages between them, not just from the past 2 months, but going back years, 6 years to be exact. I had a plan by the time the folder was sitting in my hands, not out of coldness, out of necessity. Because if I acted on pure emotion, I would lose everything in the chaos. And I refused to lose everything. I called my sister, who was an attorney, and told her everything. She came over that same night with a bottle of wine I didn't drink and a legal pad she filled with notes. I called my accountant the next morning. Marcus and I had built a business together, a small property management company that had grown significantly over the past 5 years. I needed to understand exactly what I was standing on before I started pulling at threads. It took me 3 weeks to get everything in order. 3 weeks of sleeping next to a man I no longer recognized. 3 weeks of texting my best friend as if she were still my best friend. I've never felt more alone in my life, and I've never been more focused. I chose a Sunday. Marcus was in the kitchen making breakfast, which he did every Sunday because it was one of our things. The pancakes, the coffee, the weekend newspaper, even though neither of us ever actually read it. I sat down at the table and waited for him to bring the plates over. "We need to talk," I said, not dramatically, just quietly. He knew immediately. I saw it happen in his face, the color draining, the jaw going slightly slack. I slid the folder across the table. He didn't open it. He just looked at it. "How long have you known?" he asked. "Long enough," I said. "My sister will be contacting your attorney by end of business tomorrow." He tried to talk. He tried to explain. He said it didn't mean anything, which is the most insulting sentence a person can say to someone they've spent 15 years married to. He said Diane and I were the ones who mattered, that he'd made a catastrophic mistake. I got up, put my coffee cup in the sink, and went to get my overnight bag from the hall closet. I'd packed it 3 weeks ago. I didn't call Diane to confront her. I sent her a message. One message. 11 words. "I know. Don't contact me. My attorney will be in touch." She called 16 times that afternoon. I didn't answer once. She sent a message at midnight. She said she was sorry. She said she'd hated herself every day. She said she loved me and that she'd ended things with Marcus 2 years ago and that she'd been living with the guilt ever since 2 years ago, which meant it had been 4 years of active betrayal and 2 years of guilty silence. I've thought a lot about which was worse. I think the silence was. The divorce was finalized 8 months later. My attorney, I stopped using my sister partway through because I needed someone without emotional stakes, was exceptional. Marcus had assumed I would be too grief-stricken to be strategic. He was wrong. I walked away with a fair settlement, full ownership of the business and the house, which I've since sold. I didn't want the house. Too many Sunday mornings in that kitchen. As for Diane, we have never spoken again. She sent one letter, handwritten. I read it once, and I don't know where it is now. I don't need to know. What I do know is this. In the months after everything fell apart, people kept asking me when I was going to forgive them, as if forgiveness were something I owed them, as if it were a finish line I was supposed to be racing toward. Forgiveness, I've come to understand, is for you, not for the person who wronged you. And I have forgiven myself for not seeing it sooner, for trusting people who weren't worthy of it. for believing that loyalty was always returned in kind. I am still working on the rest. That's allowed. It's been 2 years now. I moved to a different city. I have an apartment that's entirely mine. The colors, the furniture, the chaos, all mine. I have a small circle of people I trust more carefully than I used to. I have a therapist who once told me that the ability to trust deeply is a gift, not a flaw, and that what happened to me was a reflection of their choices, not my worth. I still have good days and hard days. Some mornings I wake up and feel the shape of everything I lost, the marriage, the friendship, the version of myself who believed so completely that the people she loved were who she thought they were. And then I get up anyway. Because here's what I've learned. 20 years of a friendship doesn't belong to one person. Half of those memories are mine. The laughter, the road trips, the 2 a.m. phone calls when the world felt too heavy. She can't take those from me. They happened. They were real. They just weren't the whole story. Neither was I. But I am still writing mine. And this chapter? This one is entirely my own. If you're going through something like this, if you're sitting somewhere right now, reading or watching this and recognizing something in your own life, I want you to hear this. You are not foolish for having loved well. You are not weak for having trusted completely. The failure of someone else's character is never a measurement of yours. And if the people closest to you can't protect the gift of your trust, then they were never your people to begin with. Take your time, build quietly, and know that what's coming for you is better than what walked away.